Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Sam Phatey on the conversation tonight. Sam, welcome to the conversation.
Mr. Krubally, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. When I started, obviously, this conversation, I was thinking about the likes of you, because we all know that this is a fight for the young. Some of us that are a little older, chances are we're not going to enjoy this freedom that many of us are fighting for. But it is a fight for the young. Needless, we have to do it. And that is why we're really targeting the young, especially young leaders like you. So we're going to just go ahead and have a simple conversation. We want to understand where Sam Phatey stands on national issues. Obviously, the 2016 election, we will talk about that and the way forward. And hopefully, we will get to hear a very, very, very interesting conversation here today. But before we go, Sam, I always like to do this because I want people to understand that, you know, Sam, Momodou, Coach Pasamba didn't just wake up one day and just hate Yaya Jammeh. We're actually are fighting for the right, but we are also your regular Gambians that have ambitions, families. Just take a quick moment and introduce yourself to that person that have not met Sam Phatey.
Well, there's not too much to say about myself. My name is Sam Phatey, and I'm from the Gambia. Specifically, I grew up in Brikama, and of course, I grew up as a young person. I think I am blessed to have certain opportunities where, as a young activist in the Gambia, working on child rights issues, I have been exposed to seeing things in other countries through the little travels and seminars that we had. So it gave me a different perspective that probably a lot of young people at my age growing up in Gambia will not be able to identify or will not be able to see. And generally, since then, it has given me a resolve to make sure that I can advocate on behalf of Gambian young people. And those young people today, Mr. Krubally, are the youths. And it's so sad to see that most of those young people whose rights that me and my colleagues we are trying to fight for in Gambia on simple child rights and child abuse issues are the same young people who are unemployed. They're dying in the back way in the Mediterranean, and our government unwilling to help them. So that opportunity that a lot of Gambian young people gave me when I was much younger to engage with the government, to learn about some of these policy issues through UN and UNICEF, the fight doesn't stop there. And now that they have grown and they are youths, the advocacy continues to that stage. And in fact, it is now more critical, it is now more relevant, and it is now more important than ever. So pretty much that's me. I'm an activist, I'm an advocate. I like to fight for social justice.
Thank you so much, Sam. And like you said, obviously you're a youth activist. Now, I did listen to you one time. You were on radio. You were talking about you were once like a young parliament member or something of that nature. Could you give us a little information about that? What age you really started getting to understand what Gambian politics is like? Because I want people to understand that no matter how young you are, you can really prepare yourself.
It was back in 2002. I was in sixth grade when I first participated in the Second National Forum on Children. Now, before that, back in 1999 and 2000, I was part of a group of young people at the Brikama Community Radio. We had what we call the Enter Educate program, but that didn't have a lot to do with policy or politics. It just had a lot more to do with our activities as students and what we have to do to be successful, our relations with teachers and school environment. But by 2002, I started getting into child rights issues. So in 2003, we were part of the first batch of people to be part of the Voice of the Young, then under the Child Protection Alliance that was formed. Then there was a Children's National Assembly of the Gambia. So which means now we have young people who are going to sit too when government decide about policies or the parliament decide about policies that are going to affect children. We do take a look at those policies. We do also debate about them and talk about them and be part of the people that are going to draft these policies, just such as the Children's Commission, which are still not taken into place, the proposal for a Ministry for Children's Affairs, which even though at a young age, we needed to understand how these policies are going to be created, where we have to compromise. Should we integrate this ministry to a different ministry? And how do we intend to achieve that? What does the Constitution say as to the number of ministries that we need to have? So you can see at that young age, we are already looking at, okay, the constitution says we can only have 15 ministers. We cannot have a deputy minister. So how do we achieve that? There are already 14 ministries. Government is thinking of having this other ministry. So what do we do to lobby to convince them that you don't need to have this ministry, instead you need to have a children's affairs ministry? Or how do we encourage them to say, okay, let's integrate it to the health ministry, and have a ministry of health, social welfare, and children affairs, for example. Let's call it that. So at that young age, we have to look at the education policy. When they draft it, we also have to take part in the drafting. We actually send our own reps, and they come back to us and we discuss these things. So for 4 good years, I was the consequent speaker to that parliament. I was voted in for my term, and then I was also speaker of the West Coast Region Children's Parliament as well. So I took part in the formulation of the education policy 2004 to 2008. I was part of the people that drafted it, and I was part of the people that finalized it as well. We take part in creating actually formal legislation like the Children's Act of the Gambia, 2005, which was more like a law that was protecting children against abuse and violence. And of course, even though like when we create these laws, we want them to be passed, but as a child, we will come to learn that, okay, still this law have some lapses. We want to go back for it to be amended. And those are certain things that we're still fighting with the Children's Act, where we felt that customary law seems to override certain constitutional laws still, or certain laws in the criminal code, just because of our culture. So how do we go back to correct these things? So we might not fully understand to a certain scope, certain things in these policies, but that avail people like me the opportunity to understand how policy is created, how it is worked on, and what might be the opportunities where I have to compromise. And today, those skills are what I am using to identify some of my country's problems, and that is why I am standing up for what I believe is right.
Thank you so much for that eloquent answer there. Now, Sam, you kept saying child rights issues, which I was going to ask you a minute ago, but you did address that in your answer, stating it's more about addressing the issues of child abuse, violence, and the like. But you staying on that child issues thing, we have seen lately on all on social media and all the major newspapers in the Gambia, we're continuing to see children with some serious diseases, and to the extent of cancer. And just recently, we've had a very, very effective and a successful fundraiser for Malamane, who is also obviously another case that the ordinary Gambians have taken into their hands. What would you say to the government that these are kids? Now we understand with adults, obviously, they can help themselves, but with kids that are there continuously seeking for help from the outside, what do you have to tell the youths that, things are not okay? Why are you guys sitting there just watching these people? And what needs to be done?
Absolutely. When let's draw this back to certain government policies. Let's look at our national budget, for example, and how much is allocated to certain sectors. There are certain sectors which they are very critical and they are very important. And if you look at President Jammeh, these are some of the things that he used to say, hey, I've brought development into the country, I've brought healthcare into the country, etc., etc. But if a president is not comfortable with his children getting immunization in the Gambia and being born in the Gambia, then it tells you there's something that's absolutely wrong with our health system. It's like if Obama is uncomfortable with taking his kid to public school, then that means there's something wrong with the American public school system.
Yes.
Okay? So, again, it is all obvious that if you remember back in the days, I might be very young, but research have shown that Senegalese people used to come to the Gambia to seek medical attention. Now it's the reverse. Gambians are going to Senegal to seek medical attention for issues that could have been resolved in our country if the right capital investment is done in that sector from our national budget. Now, critical sectors such as health, education, tourism, and agriculture have been continuously undermined because those resources and those funding that are supposed to go to these sectors are being diverted to the State House. The State House has an overinflated budget that is not necessary for the sustaining of the presidency itself. So if you look at the supplementary budget, for example, 2 years ago, within less than 4 months, about 600 million was allocated to them. That was so unnecessary, while only about 200 million was allocated to the health department. If you look at how much our doctors are getting paid, all these are issues. Now, the Department of Social Welfare is also part of is responsible to take care of kids, especially street children and children that are in need. And if you look at at the country, majority of young people in our country live in poor households. Nearly 65% of them are unable to afford healthcare at all, not even paracetamol from the pharmacy. They are unable to afford it. Now, the government has a responsibility to make sure that adequate fund is allocated to make sure that the needs of the people are taken care of. So if they are failing in that sector, now you don't expect somebody with a case as chronic and as serious as Malamane's case, to be able to have the simple medical attention it need. Now, if you remember Dr. Jafari, that was one of the Syrian doctors that was in the country not long ago. He got suspended after he went to parliament and said that there are certain medicines that, they only cost $400, but they are unable to afford them. And if you have a majority leader of the parliament telling you that, oh, you need to increase the consultation fee in the hospital, when majority of the people in our country are unable to feed themselves, children are going to bed hungry. These are the same children that need this medicine in the hospitals and these vitamins because they are malnourished. If we are unable to provide this critical medication to them, then it's a question of not just leadership, it's a question of the entire government system and the entire government apparatus. And that reason in itself alone is enough to replace that particular government.
Sam, I get your point. You're a young man, well-spoken, you've made a great case. But each time Yahya Jammeh is out, we see floods of young men and women going after him, running across the country with him whilst he rides his car. Are we fighting a lost cause? Given that the main problem of the whole child's right issue, the whole youth lack of employment, the whole taking of the back way, people dying, these kids wake up and they don't get food to eat. They don't have jobs. Where is the disconnect? Why can't these youths understand from a youth's perspective and someone who's lived in the Gambia before and traveled and lived under this regime? Where is the disconnect for these people to really see that, you know what, things don't add up? I'm following this guy, he's not providing anything for me.
I think, that's a very important question. And a lot of people don't get to ask that question. I don't know why, but it's good that you brought it up. Now, let me give you an example. You remember, and I always said this, and a lot of people that train me in child rights, they are still my mentor and advisor when it comes to child protection issues. These are conversations that we had with them. And if you remember, Bailo's son was arrested and all of that. This is a government that do not care about protecting the rights of young people. They would pass a law and the international community would clap and say, yeah, the Gambia is on the right track. Look, they passed a law to protect children. It's called the Children's Act, but enforcing become an issue because you are more busy arresting journalists and human rights defenders than investing the money into police cruisers and other stuff that would focus on community-oriented policing and protecting children from rape, protecting children from abuse, protecting children from sexual exploitation. Now, a lot of these young people, that there's a huge disconnect that I can tell you now. But let's look at this. A lot of young people that are able to go to the university or are able to have exposure to the internet and are learning stuff, they're really using it for resourceful purposes and engaging the right people. Those people understand what is happening. They really do. And they want to stop it. They want to fight. But if you look at the majority of the crowd that's following Jammeh, majority of them are either high school dropouts or they are middle school dropouts or they probably never been to school. They are only looking to have a favor, at least have a meal. They are desperate. They want to at least have a meal on the table that night, or at least they want to eat something. That is the sad reality of what is happening. It's not a lost battle and it's not a lost war. It's something we can win only if we put our message in the right way. There was this one time a police officer inboxed me and told me that I hate my country and what I'm doing is just the wrong thing. It only took me that entire conversation for me to make him understand exactly what I'm trying to achieve. Now, if somebody is unable, Mr. Krubally, to provide food for his family, to provide healthcare, to provide clothing and good shelter for them, and provide education for his kids, do you think that person cares about freedom of speech? He does not. That person cares about those things, about I want food. So how do we connect to the average Gambian? We need
I don't mean to cut you there, but then you said, how do we connect to the average Gambian? Given that we're on the outside here, would you also say that this is a missed opportunity for the political parties that are on the ground, that they're really not looking at this from the angle that we're looking at it? Like, these are people that really belong in our section if we only took the time to really communicate with them.
And this is why like the political parties need to help the diaspora. I'm not saying they are not, but I don't think they are doing it the right way to help send the diaspora message home. Because what Jammeh is doing, Jammeh is bringing the fight to the diaspora. He is not worried about the opposition parties and their leaders and their members back home. He is worried about the de facto opposition that is being created from the diaspora. And they try to filter this message to a lot of other young people. Now, I did a sponsored post on Facebook, and this was about the future of young people to make them feel hopeful about their own future. Do you know some of the responses I got? Some of the responses I got was, you don't love this country, you hate this country, you people outside. So I found from that, like, that was an evidence to me that there's a huge disconnect between us and these young people, that so much so that they don't even get the message that was entailed in that particular message that I boosted for them, targeting them specifically in the Gambia for them to see. That was an experiment, and it proven that. Now, what the opposition need to do is to understand that, look, sometimes they need to campaign and advocate and say, you see those people in the diaspora? They are okay. They lived in air conditions home. They don't hate this country. We contribute 22% of the GDP of that country. Do you know what is going to happen if we pull out our money out of that country? The economy is going to collapse. The entire country is going to suffer. So if you don't have somebody back outside the Gambia, the point is, those remittances that are sent home have ripple effects on the economy that reaches you as an individual. From the market pricing, whether it's up or high, it's all determined by that factor. The diaspora part of the Gambian economy is even bigger than tourism. If a simple case as Ebola could affect the tourism sector, which is 16% of the GDP, and cause the Gambia to go back for 10 million, what is going to happen if the diaspora decides to hold back even for 2 weeks? It's going to be a bankrupt government. So we have this power, we have this leverage that we got to use, but we need the opposition to help us use it. Now they need to make ordinary Gambians understand the opportunities we had in the diaspora. Mr. Krubally, if you have a relative in the Gambia and he or she gets sick, let's be honest, the person do not need to go to any Gambian hospital.
Yep.
So the point is, why are you doing this? When you could be like any other person and say, you know what, I'm going to go to work, mind my business, my family is getting fed, and I don't care about what happened to the rest. But you and so many other people see the Gambia as a greater family. And you will not sit aside and sit by and watch your family get their daily needs while your neighbor do not have that. You found that if you live in a country like America, you will find that to be unacceptable. And you understand that as a Gambian. But how many other Gambians, when Yahya Jammeh is going out there using GRTS, blasting all this propaganda, and then you are throwing all this out there, and they are like, oh, they hate my country. It has always been a political syndrome in the Gambia that, look, if you oppose the current government, it means you hate the country. It has always been a concept that has been built. Now, the opposition they have never fought that. They need to go back and fight that and make people understand, no, that is absolutely not the truth. That is far from being the truth. So they need to help us there in that sector. Sometimes they need to tell us, look, we need to talk about the economy, but we need to talk about food. I know we need to talk about freedom of speech, but these guys here do not understand that they are hungry. We need to talk about getting them out of poverty. Now, the opposition need to re-echo that message, and let us help them re-echo that. They need to work with us on that.
So you're saying more do the OJ type of campaign where he's telling you the cost of rice, the cost of oil, the difference in
Now, you remember Gambians never had a demonstration, even after the 1981 coup d'etat, about whether their freedoms were restricted or state of emergency were restricted. Now, you remember the bread demonstration.
Yes.
In Brikama, we remember the water demonstration because they were going to put water up by $1 or $2 in 1994.
Okay.
So you have to bring home to the people what is so important to them, what is so close to them, what is so dear to their heart, what the emotional attachment has to be there. But and I understand for we in the diaspora how important all this, and I know all these things are connected to our freedom of expression, our rights being secured and guaranteed. But at the same time, due to the political apathy back home, And if you look at the difference in the level of education, that is not there. But if we talk to them about their daily bread, their daily life, something that they are just out there commonly seeing, and understand how the policies of the Jammeh administration affect those things, it is going to echo with them a long way. That is what has been done in Salem, and that was how they lost their seat in Salem.
Thank you so much, Sam.
So that,
very, very eloquent, on point also. And I have to say, this is the essence of this conversation, is to hear things. I know sometimes when we're listening to this type of things, it comes across as, okay, we're just talking, simple English here. But I think it is very important for people to really listen to this and really understand what the actual problems are, because I think sometimes we just spend a lot of time, like you said, bashing on the government, but more focusing on the real issues. You talked about a little while ago that you did a lot of stuff on social media to really get the pulse of the youth on the ground. I know you're part of a youth movement, also part of GYU. I'm not sure if you're still part of that. Is there anything going on that is the youths over here are really helping to connect with the youths on the ground? Because at the end of the day, if you were still in the Gambia, chances are you would not have been an activist like you are right now. Given that you're out, you've gotten this experience. Is there anything that you're involved in as a youth to really try to empower the youths on the ground?
I'll be honest with you. If I had never had the chance to travel, I would have probably not been an activist. I would not. Because growing up in Gambia, especially those of us that grew up starting to know things after 1994, you look at Jammeh, even if you know your family is not in support of him, you felt like if I want to get something, I have to go to the state house. I have to write a letter to the state house and I have to explain myself, and it's how I'm going to get money. But if you don't travel to other countries, I think the little conferences we attended outside, the little summits, and going to other countries and seeing how life is, enlightens you and tells you, look, something is wrong. I knew young people that loved the president. They always supported him. If they were still in Gambia, they would. But as soon as they step out of the country and they look back, they automatically realize something is wrong and they have a change of heart. Now they start realizing, no, did he say those things? That was wrong. But 2 years ago, you were in the Gambia, never traveled. If he had said those things, it was okay with you.
Yeah.
It was okay with you. So for me, 2002 to 2003, certain things that Jammeh say or do were okay with me. In fact, I was so happy that he did certain things as a young person. And like, for example, the concept of education for all, I once did a speech in 2003 at the Gambia College during the Third National Forum on Children, where I said, well, the president's idea for free education is a good thing. The tapes are there, and I praised him for it. But then I traveled outside the country and saw what education for free is, looked at their policy. We came back, and I looked at our policy. I'm like, this is unattainable.
Yeah.
It is wrong. And mind you, a year ago, I felt it was okay.
Yeah.
And then I felt that, okay, look, we are losing teachers. I was in private school throughout, but I knew government schools, we are losing teachers. Now, back in 2008, that resulted to me giving a 45-minute speech at the National Assembly. The newspaper report is there. And I clearly demanded with my colleagues for the increment of salaries of teachers, providing them with housing in the provinces, and also giving them proper incentives and benefits, including health and life insurance, especially for those that are going to go into the Upper River region and the Central River region, because most teachers were unwilling to go to that side of the country. And what that does is, it's not that young people that live in the Upper River region and the Central River region are not intelligent young people. They are intelligent, they are smart, but they do not have the quality of education and the right opportunities like those young people that live in the combos. It creates an unfair disparity. It creates an unbalanced dynamics.
Good point. Good point. Now, we've spent the last 10, 15 minutes talking about all the bad things that are happening in that nation. The responsibility also lies on us. And part of it lies on, obviously, the opposition who obviously have the voice and the mandate of some of us. Mm-hmm. Are the opposition doing anything in your eyes that can definitely bring about this awareness and the concerns that you brought about in your take? If they're not, why do you think they're not doing that? And why are they not seeing some of the things that you've just mentioned here?
I think the opposition initially, they have tried. I'm not going to take the credit from them. But there are two particular parties who I think have really attempted to send people a direct message as to what is going to connect to them. The PPP and the PDOIS did. But what happened, the PDOIS did it at such a level that, it's so hard for the ordinary Gambian just to comprehend and understand. Now, the PPP, the way they are doing it is robust, and I only wish there was more finances for it to be done that way. But that would have been better off if there is a coalition of key opposition parties doing this together. In 2006, I was young. But when they came up with NAD, I was so hopeful. I said to myself, this is it. It's over. This is the end of the game for him. But when they fell apart, I look back, and I and my dad went into this debate, and I told him, I said, you opposition guys, you are done. You are finished. I said, this is the end of you guys' career. It's done. That you guys came together and gave us so much hope and then fell apart. I said, then we have lost so much hope. I said, people are not going to go out to vote. So politics was something like a conversation I kept them having with my dad, for example. This not happening in so many homes because not so many parents were comfortable doing that. While I was having these conversations with my dad, my mom was not too comfortable. So the thing is, the opposition needs to send the right message. They need to go back and take a look at their strategy.
Now, Sam, talking to you, you sound like a lot of people out there. When NAD failed, a lot of people are still bitter about that.
Yep.
That's a fact. To move forward, what needs to be done for the likes of you and the people that were disappointed back then to look at this issue to say, this was the first time we tried it. It didn't work. Let's learn from it and move forward. What would it take for people like you to come on board 100% on this opposition and say, that was a learning experience, we've got to move forward? Because it seems like you're still holding on to that, and it's not just you, it's a lot of other people out there.
And it's so true, and I will tell you, sometimes it affects some of the decisions that we too holding on to it make. Because if you hear me talk, if you hear me speak, you hear me always fighting with the guys from UDP and PDOIS because I often blame them for the fall apart of NAD. And it's like, that disappointment is there, that, should I say that anger is still there, and it's like killing you, like, we could have done this. It could be different. The thing is, like you said, we have to learn from it. It's simple. Let's go back. Let's take a look at the loopholes that happened. Like, what were the loopholes? What were the mistakes? Let's take responsibility for it. And to tell the people, we have failed you, we are taking responsibility for action, but we have learned from this, and we are going to fix this. We are going to fix this for a future generation of Gambians. Send a clear message. Come together. It is not about leadership. Leadership is not about who is going to be the flag bearer. Leadership is not about who is going to be the president out of the coalition. Leadership is when you can put your differences aside and look at your commonalities and sit together and just listen to somebody, even if you disagree with the person, and make one sense out of the nonsense. Even nonsense has sense in it. Just make one sense out of the nonsense. In Nigeria, in Guinea, recently in Jamaica, in Niger right now, the oppositions are uniting to take over the parliament. In Nigeria, they have united and kicked out the PDP and Goodluck Jonathan, and they have Muhammadu Buhari. In Jamaica, they have replaced their prime minister. The opposition united to be able to achieve that. There are examples every day of lessons of the opposition uniting to achieve what they want to achieve. When some people say that elections is not going to take our Jame, as flawed as the numbers are, it's simple majority in the Gambia. If you put the opposition numbers and tally them together, they defeated Jame by at least 0.7 to 1.7%. That is their chance of winning. What I'm saying is, there are so many people out there right now who are particular about our country. They do not belong to any political party, but you know that they are involved and they will support all of you. Mr. Krubally, out of 1.8 million people, we can find that one person who will take a stand, who they can all rally behind if they put their differences aside and just take that independent person. It's not a coup d'etat, but it can be a transition. That person can be there for only 3 to 5 years, like one term, and resign and allow us to hold a proper election where all these other opposition parties can run individually on their own if they want to. But at least the result is we have been able to successfully and strategy-wise, tactically, taking out Yahya Jammeh out of the way.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Sam Phatey. Very eloquent, on point. I know sometimes when we listen to these things, we just want to sit there and hit Jammeh, but I think it's very important for us to really listen to each other, because sometimes
I think sometimes
to our problems is really in this discussion.
It's like Jammeh is there and he might be like a problem, but sometimes we have to look back at ourselves and critically review ourselves and our strategies moving forward. We need to assess ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sam, for that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Conversation. Momodou Krubally speaking with Sam Phatey here. We're not done yet. We're going to talk to Sam about politics and then the way forward. As a youth activist, we want Sam to obviously tell us how to move forward as a nation. Sam, the big elephant in the room, the person we all want gone, is Yahya Jammeh. 21 years later, is Yahya stronger or weaker than he used to be?
Yahya is weaker than he used to be. If you look at it, Gambians are not happy. They are dissatisfied. A lot of young people that I talk to, they are not happy about it. But as he is getting weaker, the only thing that can peacefully and democratically extinct Jammeh from the Gambia is going to be a united opposition. If that failed, there's only one ultimatum. It's going to be a nasty, bloody military takeover. And again, even after that, we can put all the pressure we want to put on the military regime. Either somebody will turn themselves into civilians, or the opposition again has to unite and fight. See, sometimes I think they make themselves look bad. Like, you cannot boycott parliamentary elections and you want to run for presidential elections as individual parties after you boycotted parliamentary elections because the elections were not free and fair, and you allow Jammeh and his cohorts to go there and pass a new legislation that even make it harder for you to have a free and fair election. Then it starts to question your integrity. Then what happened is your legacy starts being destroyed after all the hard work that you did to put the country on the right path. There are greater opportunities for us ahead. But unless we unite, we will not know how weak Jammeh is. He is very weak right now.
But you keep talking about unity, and we did hear recently that the opposition have not had any discussions about coming together, forming a coalition.
All discussions have stalled.
Why? Because of NAD again?
Yeah, all discussions have stalled because you have the same problems that existed when NAD was being formulated, accusations of people leaking stuff. I think sometimes they, like I said, they either need to organize themselves and treat themselves and work with protocols like a government would, or like a waiting government would. I have not even seen our opposition parties engage in foreign governments. I've not seen our opposition parties directly and publicly and in the media out there engaging, let's say, the development partners as critical as the European Union, as critical as the World Bank about sound policy issues. They have the power to be able to do this, but I don't see it happening. And I think, and I surely believe, sometimes the diaspora, we have a lot of influence on these political parties back home. We just can't be talking about unity. We need to go back and talk to our party leaders. Even if you don't belong to these political parties, as an independent individual, you have somebody that you like and would wish to be president. Call him, talk to their representatives and say, look, we have to unite. I believe if there's anything we should learn from the $25,000 that was raised within 72 hours, is that if the opposition ever comes together, if they need $10 million, they will get it. They will get it. There are over 130,000 Gambians that live outside the Gambia. I have not had quite a pressure, even where the opposition have been presenting their reforms to the National Assembly, to the IEC about electoral reforms, they have not presented an argument, okay, to have the diaspora to vote. 130,000 votes is being wasted. If a country as poor by GDP, poorer than the Gambia, can have their citizens vote outside the country, including those in the Gambia, and our president can drive a Hummer and fly in a private jet, and the wife can spend 70,000 on a one-day trip, what makes you think that money couldn't be invested for us to vote? Because Jammeh clearly knows that a diaspora Gambian voting means he's out of office. 130,000 added to just the UDP's number has kicked Jammeh out.
You've got a solid point, my friend. Thank you so much for that, Sam. Like I said, this obviously you're making up a very, very, very good case. Let's switch for a minute. Obviously, you've talked about what the opposition needs to do, and obviously some of the challenges that our youths are facing. Let's now talk about some of the things that Jammeh have done that have changed or will change most of our lives as long as he's there. As a young man, we recently saw Jammeh pull us out of the Commonwealth, and most recently declared us as an Islamic state.
Mm-hmm.
You all, the youths, have more to lose.
Absolutely.
When you heard this, what was your first reaction? Is this something that is going to benefit everyone? I want you to talk to the youths and let them understand that pulling us out of the Commonwealth and also becoming an Islamic state is not to our benefit.
First, let's start with the Commonwealth. When the Gambia pulled out of the Commonwealth, I would send this article to you. I wrote a lot. I think I wrote an article about the consequences of the Gambia moving out of the Commonwealth. And there are a lot of benefits to this. There are a lot of benefits for the Gambia to be part of the Commonwealth, but now we are going to lose all of those. And
examples of what? Like what?
Scholarships. Our Gambian passport was part of the top 15 most powerful passports in the world. Gambians didn't know that they can travel to over 100 countries without visas. Whether it was to the Bahamas or to Jamaica, there was a lot of places. But pulling out of the Commonwealth has changed all of that. In fact, there were scholarships for master's degrees and PhDs for Commonwealth citizens. I posted one and I said, sorry, Gambian youths, you are not qualified because the president has pulled out of the Commonwealth, a unilateral decision. There were certain protections by immigration law that would protect a Gambian citizen in the UK or any other Commonwealth country. All of that has changed. Now Gambians will have to go register and go through the hassle like other non-Commonwealth citizens. While I still believe that the Commonwealth as an organization has certain reforms to make to be taken more seriously, so a little country like the Gambia will not joke with them and understand that, look, this is a serious business and we're not going to pull out of this. The Gambia moving out of the Commonwealth is a bad thing for young people, because now a lot of Gambian young people were using this as an opportunity to join the British Army. A lot of Gambian young people were getting an education out of it. They were getting scholarship. They were getting a lot of stuff from other development projects that the Commonwealth was funding in the Gambia. Now, none of that is happening. Yeah, Jammeh is not the one that goes hungry to sleep. It is those young people and their families. Now, that's what they need to remember. Declaring them an Islamic state, that's interesting because now I did intelligence analysis. It makes me more worried about extremist issues. It makes me more worried about terrorism. I see other things that can affect our society, that can affect the youths, than the mere fact that the mere restrictions of rights. Because now you need to remember, I don't know if most Gambians are aware, that I'm not saying Nigerians are bad people. No, they are very good people. Some of my teachers were Nigerians. But Nigerians are able to live in the Gambia. Remember it's ECOWAS. They can just get their ID and come to Gambia. Yeah. Now, if you enter the Gambia as a Nigerian, you are fine. You don't need to renew your status. You don't need to get a work permit. You don't need none of those things. It's free willy-nilly. You can just come in and you are fine. Do whatever you want. If that is how easy it is to be in the Gambia, and you know how porous our borders are. And if you look at the existence right now of terrorist activities, if it's hit in Senegal, you obviously know that it's going to hit Gambia.
It's a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time. And it is going to happen faster than we thought, because Senegal right now, I'm just so scared because they are aggressively trying to attack and curb the terrorism issue. And that is in effect exposing the country to more threats.
Sam, you've got me sitting here scratching my head. From the time that you start.
Just think of it, because if the Nigerian can come live there, who said the leader of Boko Haram, if he feels that there is so much pressure in Nigeria, cannot just cross into our borders, and since he's Nigerian and does not need to go through all this immigration regularization all the time, will not create it as a safe haven? Didn't we land it from Osama bin Laden and Pakistan?
Yeah, man, I don't know what to say. You've made a very good case. But then to that person that says, you know what, you're telling us all of these things about the leader, but here we still have very eloquent, educated Gambians still following this guy and helping empower him, and they just recently nominated him for a 5th term.
Mm-hmm. Well,
what is your argument there? I mean, what do we need to do as a people to really? Are we just talking to ourselves here, or or do they just don't want to hear what we're saying, or are they just refusing to see? There seems to be a serious disconnect here, and because listening to you, if anybody listens to you, you're making a lot of sense. But then if you go home and you look at the crowds around him, you're like, despite all the insults, all these silly decisions, we're still empowering him.
The reality is you have some people inside the government, and like you said, they are educated, they know what's going on. And in fact, sometimes if they visit us here in the United States, they will tell you, hey, Oga, you know, like they know what's going on. I'm like, okay, and you there helping them. Do you think if all our educated at least sit down and look at him and say, no, we are not going to accept this? If our businessmen put our country first and they look at the long-term goal of why we need to have good trade deals, the Gambia is pulled out of AGOA. That's affecting them, not Yahya Jammeh. He doesn't care. If they stand and said, we are not going to accept this, we are going to change our tax system, or we're not going to pay tax. The point is, it's going to change everything. The man will either have to get his act right and do the right things, or as a united country, as a people that put our country first, we can start together and say, no, you have to go. Now, if you look at Killer Ace's video, Kuboka Chigetagi, most people watch the video, they were enjoyed. I saw one thing in the video, at the end of the video, and he sent us a message. If the entire citizenry of the Gambia come together and stand and say, nope, you have to go, you will go. And you can see the Yajamic person in that video was taking off running when people came together to chase him out.
Indeed.
So the thing is, you have the point is, we the Gambian people need to learn to put our country first, whether it is those working for Yahya Jammeh or it is those working for the opposition. If we put our country first, we would be able to unite. It all comes to that. And you can hear me say that over and over, no matter what point I make, it just comes to that. If we put our country first, Mr. Krubally, now you can see ministers, permanent secretaries, living great lives. Go to around Bursibi right now. Junior civil servants own mansions. Something is wrong. It was not even that bad of what we accused Jawara of and the PPP. It was not to this extent where it becomes so obvious, where you have a junior officer flying first class on SN Brussels, and they are not hiding it, they are putting it all over Facebook.
Indeed.
So the point is, for once, let us not think about ourselves. For once, let us think about Gambia Kunda. Let me not think about Krubally Kunda or Phatey Kunda. Because if it's just Krubally Kunda or Phatey Kunda that's paying taxes, then we would all be poor, we would all be bankrupt. There is this woman who is sitting at the market with her tomatoes, and every day she is harassed by the tax collector from the area council. It is those people's money that you, the minister, who claim to be educated, who claim to have maybe once lived in the West. Say you're a government representative. You pass them every day over there at the market. Their kids don't even have a school bus to ride. Not even a medicine at the hospital. But there, you the minister, your kids are here with me. We are studying. In America, they go to any country they like. They travel if they want. Mr. Krubally, it's not just unfair. It is unacceptable that you should not be able to go to sleep. Like, do you even have a conscience? That you're going to help suppress an entire country because you're going to benefit out of it. We have to put our country first. That's the only thing that's going to change that. Unless we stop being selfish and put the nation first, then that is always going to be a problem. And the problem is there. It's so obvious. We just cannot deny it. And the truth is we cannot ignore it anymore.
But Sam, what do you say? You keep talking about not being selfish. I want to give you the opportunity. Most of us that are in the diaspora that have learned that are in this current position that you and I are the very people who, when they go home, they, in a sense, enable these people and they refuse to speak because they want to go home. What do you have to say to that group of people that are continuing to go home with the understanding that obviously they want to visit their people? But are they being selfish for refusing to call a spade and call a dictator just to go see their people? But people like you and I and Coach are here, will continue the fight, but then when they return, they pat us on the back and say, good job, life is tough over there. Speak to that constituency for a minute.
That is the most dishonest thing that anybody can do when it comes to your country, when it comes to your people. And I have known young people who, Mr. Krubally, they are here. They have been child right activists in the Gambia, but when they came here, they all decided to be quiet about it. And the fact is that some of them, it's so sad. And the sad part of the reality is this: you can go home all you want, but Mr. Krubally, tomorrow, if there's any change of government, these are the same young people these are the same people, whether young or old, that are going to come back to us and say, I knew we could do it. They want to be part of those that would take the credit, but this is not about taking credit either. That's the other thing that they need to know. It's not about taking credit. We all have a responsibility towards our people. We all have a responsibility towards our government. One time I was at a demonstration and a young man came to me and said, can we take a picture? I said, just give me a minute. He said, no, I have to go. Let's take a picture. But I said, why? Something just made me ask. You know what his response was to me?
What?
Oh, I have an asylum case. So, maybe if I take a picture with you, it's going to help. I said, you must be crazy. Like, you must be crazy. So instead of you to really come here and demonstrate, you came here for photo ops. So you could make an asylum case. Do you know how many people have asylum here, claiming to have problems with Yaya Jammeh, or your family or their friends have problems with Yaya Jammeh? They all have their asylum. That's why the American embassy is not giving visa, because every Gambian is entitled to an asylum because of what the president is doing back home. They are sitting here claiming that there's a problem in the country and that they fought that problem and that is why they can go back home. But when we say, let's come out and fight, let's talk about this. No, they don't want to, because you want to go on vacation. How selfish can you be to say that there's a problem that is happening to the entire country? That problem help you stay here, get a job here, but you're only sending money back home to your immediate family. But the problem that concerns an entire nation of 1.8 million people who you claim to have once upon a time probably fought for, and you're going to say you want to go on vacation. What vacation? And you go on vacation, you come back broke.
Thank you, young man. Very well said. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, you're listening to the conversation. Momodou Krubally speaking with Sam Phatey. On point, Sam. And I really hope the people, the opposition, and even the government, for that matter, would listen to these recordings, because these are ordinary Gambians, the regular citizens that were given the opportunity to come here and speak uninterruptedly. Just share your views, say where we stand. But we also want to show the people that those of us that are in the fight are not just loose cannons that are out there showing hatred for Jammeh. We actually do have lives, we have careers, and push come to shove, the mess that Yahya Jammeh has done in the country. There are eloquent Gambians, educated Gambians who understand government that can come work together with citizens on the ground and bring about the necessary change that is required in that nation. Sam, let's switch into politics here for a quick second. I promise I'll get you out of here in a little bit. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. And, I know it's late in your neck of the woods. It's almost 11 o'clock over there, but we'll keep you just a little bit longer. I want to talk a little bit more politics. Is that okay with you?
That's perfect.
Thank you. Sam, recently we have seen PDOIS has come up with their presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. APRC has. Very soon we will hear from GMC. We'll also hear from UDP. And PVP is the newest thing and the most hardest thing in the news right now. Is all this political positioning right now to the benefit of removing the dictatorship, or do you think it is counterproductive?
I think it is counterproductive. In fact, they are affecting their own strategy and their own way. If the opposition is going to go to the polls as individual parties, then maybe Mr. Krubally then will have to switch the campaign to ask Yahya Jammeh not to go on a campaign, but genuinely take that money and put it into the health sector and buy drugs and machines and other stuff that our hospitals need. We might as well do that. At least we'll be able to achieve something. Because, I think the PPP is not going to put up a candidate. That's obvious. They have always said and maintained that. It seems to be more. I seem to be more clear about what the PPP plan is and what really they want. I mean, OJ made it clear that they don't want to run, that he made it clear that they wanted unity, even though some other parties are saying that, well, Mr. OJ said that is just a tactic. Well, I think it's beyond just a tactic, because as a journalist too, I mean, I did interview OJ and I did interview all these other opposition party leaders, and you can tell from their answers what is going on, if what they're trying to tell you is very, very clear or it's not very, very clear. Now, we are not surprised by the PDOIS candidate. Sidi Ajata is unable to run. I mean, obviously, he and Khalifa, since 1989, have been on the top of affairs for the PDOIS. So it's so obvious that it's just going to be a turnover to Khalifa, and where it's not. If they are still concerned about a coalition, at least maybe instead of saying that you are going to be a PDOIS flag bearer, you would say you are going to be a NAT flag bearer. But that didn't happen. The UDP is not clear as to who is going to be their flag bearer either. And Ousainou Darboe cannot run. Now, the time to fight for that age limit has gone. So sometimes I think our political parties miss opportunities. They keep missing opportunities. Like Karamba said, for some reason, they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. I stole that from Karamba. But the thing is, running for presidency as individual parties is strategic. It is not tactical. It is not in their favor. It's not going to get them any good results. And it's so obvious. Now, imagine if the opposition has to have to run for parliament, right? You know exactly where your strongholds are, and you can agree on this and go and win those strongholds. You can change laws, you can change policies, you can influence a lot of things and help direct certain things. You can help us attain a free and fair election and kick him out. But you cannot start building a house and you force one to buy the corrugate for the house. That's practically impossible. At least you have to buy sand and cement to start with the foundation, right?
Right.
But if we miss on building a strong foundation, if we miss on those, then, Mr. Krubally, we are not going to get the kind of house that we want. Remember, what the kind of house we are building is Gambia Kunda. You see, sometimes you go to the village, you have a big house, like an imam's house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have 7 sections of this house, right?
Yes.
Now, we have one big compound. It's called Gambia Kunda. But the problem is, Yahya Jammeh has successfully built a wall in between these houses. And you know who is helping fermenting these walls?
Who?
It is the opposition. What they should be doing is breaking down these walls. Now, if you have one individual trying to break down all these walls across the country, across this compound, you are just trying to break down this wall. It's going to take you a longer period of time before all the wall break down. But if you all come together and just break it down, it's faster. You get there faster. The job is going to get done quick.
Sam, that's an excellent analogy there that you gave about obviously coming together. But do you think with the current election reform laws that even if the opposition were to come together, they can beat Yaya at the polls?
Now, it's gonna cost them more money to do it. But if they come together, it is attainable, it is reachable, it is achievable. But they have to send the right message to the people.
What's that message?
That message is their daily living and how decisions of this government for the past 21 years have changed and affect that. Look at how the dollar has depleted. Look at how our foreign reserve has depleted. Imagine how many times have we seen the price of gas, the price of rice, the price of onions, the price of sugar, the price of bread, the price of even ordinary water have gone up in the country. Forget other luxuries like electricity. Just look at just those little ordinary things. Before, if it's going to cost you $10 to make nyankatang, now it's costing you $80. How many people can afford that? How many people can afford that? When we were much younger, there was this thing, maybe you don't know about it, Mr. Krubally, but it's called goron soup. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes, indeed.
Goron soup we used to make using, if you have $5, you have a whole lot of goron soup, Mr. Krubally.
Good point.
A friend of mine told me, if you don't spend $75, you're not getting even little goron soup, not a good amount to put in bread.
Sam, good point. Good analysis. You're talking about food. You're distracting me a little bit, but we're going to stay on course here for a quick second. Sam, you are a young man. You obviously are pushing for the coalition. I'm going to ask you a question before the one I was going to ask you here, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
It has been said that you're very tough on the opposition, especially the UDP. Is this a fair statement? And if it is a fair statement, why?
You know, if they say I've been tough on the opposition, especially the UDP, yes, it's a fair statement. You know why?
Why?
You are only tough on somebody and you're only angry at somebody because you care about them, because you love them, because you have hope in them. But there's something that they did and disappointed you. If I don't really care about you, why would I be mad at you or be tough towards you? Because there's something in you that I see in you that I just need to pull out of you, and I need you to do it. If you're getting ready to be a soldier, to defend your country, your drill sergeant is not going to be all kissy-kissy towards you and try to be nice towards you. He drills you. But when you graduate from training and put on that uniform, he is proud of you. And you guys can now stand there and smile. The UDP is the largest opposition party in the Gambia. There are certain things, when they make decisions to do those things, it is going to have ripple effects. It is going to send a clear message to Jammeh, and it's going to send a clear message to the entire international community. It's going to send a clear message to the entire world. I believe they have certain leadership capabilities that they are not exploring. My father was part of the UDP, and that's why some people look at me and be like, you're not supposed to be criticizing them. Your father was part of their leadership. I said, that's my father. This is me. But I know that our opposition in our country, whether it's UDP or PDOIS, all of these people have great intentions for our country. They all want to see a great Gambia. But hey, for us, some of us, the young people, we know your intentions are good, but we want to be patient. It's taking a little bit too long. The opposition, like, I'm looking back and say, have you guys not learned anything from 1965 to date? Like, the opposition never got a majority in our parliament. You guys have, the incumbent have always have control of the narrative. Can we change the dynamics? It's up to them not to see people like me as a bad critic, but we can engage in conversations with you. If we do not believe in your ability, wallahi, we are not going to be talking about you. We are not even going to be tough towards you because there's this thing we see in you and you're not doing it, and some of us are getting so disappointed. And we are looking back at our life, at our future, and I'm looking back and I'm telling myself, I could be back home over there. I could be working there. I could be doing stuff. It's not about getting a good pay in America. Sometimes you just want to be home in your country. Sometimes you just want to be doing things. You want to work with the right people. You want to work with the right government. You are seeing the right people to work with, but probably they're not using the right strategies and the right ways to get there. And these are conversations that you might have in camera or in private, but if it's not happening, you have to bring it out because it's about the country. It's about the people.
Indeed, Sam, I just heard you answer this question so eloquently when you stated that we only criticize the opposition, especially the UDP, given that we have faith in them, we love them, and it is one of those things that is called tough love, where you have to be very critical, especially when you see an opportunity that they're not seeing. With that said, Sam, here you are. We all know that forcefully we cannot force these political parties to do anything. At some point, the core of this conversation is also to talk to these leaders, for them to understand what we expect of them. Halifa, Lawyer Davo, Mai Phatey, Ahmad Ba are sitting in front of you. You're a young man, 21 years. This is your future. Women have been raped. Men have been imprisoned, killed. The Gambian has not seen anything under the leadership of Yahya Jammeh. Talk to them on the importance of coming together as leaders of this nation to free us from 21 years of oppression.
You know, I live in this country. I call it my second home, and I'm very proud of it. And it's the same way that I want to be proud of the Gambia, that I can stand there and talk about the history of my country and talk about great leaders who can inspire, who can motivate, that we can look back in history long after they are gone and we can say, hey, I want to be like Dabo. I know Africa, we are proud of Nelson Mandela. But if you look at Nelson Mandela, he worked more on when it comes to South Africa than the entire Africa. Let's just be honest about it. Why can't I also look back and see a hero in my own people and say this was a man who sacrificed everything he had for so long and gave up everything, and they sat together on a table and said, let us do this not for ourselves. Let us do this for our country. Let us do this for the future generation of leaders, that we should not leave them with a broken economy. We should not leave them with a broken education system. We should not leave them with a broken healthcare system. That is going to be their legacy, whether either of them become president or not. Obama is concerned about his legacy. Every American leader is concerned about their legacy. This is why they can come here and talk about Abraham Lincoln. This is why they can even talk about George W. Bush. This is why they can talk about Ronald Reagan. This is why they can talk about George Washington. I want to be able to talk about Halifa Saleh. I want to be able to talk about Mai Phatey. I want to be able to talk about Sidi Jata. I want to be able to talk about Ousainou Darboe. I can look back and tell my children and my children's children the importance of putting your country first and forgetting our personal goals and our personal dreams to make sure that the dreams of our children come first. And those children, it's not their immediate family. It's the children of the Gambia. It's our future leaders. We want technology. We want innovation. We want jobs. After 21 years with a certain government, we are unable to achieve that. After 21 years of parties individually running on their own, they are not able to achieve that. If America feels that the Cuban embargo is not working and Obama decides to change that, I see no reason why Halifa, Dabo, Phatey, or Ba cannot come together and realize that, look, individually running on our own for 21 years have needed work for us. And as a government, we are going to adopt, as a future government or people that are fighting for the freedom and liberation of our people, we are going to also learn from that and adopt to the new ways, the new strategies, and the new times, and see if that will give us the kind of result that we want. This is not about becoming a government of life or death, and that line is very thin, it's very slim. A slip from it, we would fall. And another 5 years of the Jammeh administration, they must know, is going to be damaging to our country. But as much as it is damaging to Jammeh's legacy, their lack of failure to come together for that unity of purpose to get our country on the right path is going to be more damaging to them.
Thank you, young man. You've said it well. I could end this conversation here right now. This is, again, what I try to get, because I truly believe the Gambian is a decent individual. We're very peaceful, but something about Yahya Jammeh and what happened this last 21 years, we've lost focus. And that is what we're trying to bring back. Just have the Gambians speak at heart to the leaders, and hopefully the people that surround and empowering Yahya will understand that it is time to take back our country and move forward. Sam Phatey, thank you so much for coming to the conversation. I was going to let you go, but I'm going to put you on the spot and I'll ask you two or three more questions.
Okay.
Of late, there has been a lot of conversation about women candidates. We're archiving the history of our nation. When you did, almost a year ago, you did a program on the 50th independence anniversary of the Gambia, and I heard you very emotional. Part of that was that we struggled to understand how independence came about, and that brought in historians like Tijan Masana Sise, who we're going to bring here to talk to us a little bit about the history of our nation. Mm-hmm. Up to this date, we have not heard much activity of how the woman has contributed to the history of our nation to bring about independence. Yankuba Dabo said it well. He said women have been leaders in our communities by being head mistresses and a whole lot of other positions. A lot of talk about women leadership. Are we going to see one very soon? And Sam, the question that everybody is scared to ask about, but we have to ask about it because we need to bring awareness to it. Knowing the culture of the Gambia, are we ready for a female leadership?
You know how Gambian women in our political system, in fact, they are the most powerful. Let's just admit this. And they do not realize their power, but some of our male politicians do. They do. You know, I kind of kept this, but now you're going to make me bring it out. We need a strong, radically oriented female to lead a coalition, and that would sweep Jammeh out faster than we have even ever thought. It will change the dynamics, not just for Gambians, but for even the international community from whom we seek attention from. And there are those kind of women in the Gambia. There's a lot of them. They just have to agree upon it. The world have changed so much over the past years, and it's continuing to change. It's continuing to evolve. We have to change along with it. Women in the Gambia, especially young girls, are now even taking more stands. They're speaking up more, and some are getting more engaged in politics. But they don't even know which of the political parties they have to go to, because now it's all about ideology. Maybe there's a generational difference between us and our current political leaders. But my question is now, how do we bridge that? That means we need to sit down with them and engage them, even if it means we have to organize intergenerational dialogues with them so we can understand the concept of us, the young people, compared to the concept of the older politicians. But they exist in our country. Some of them we probably never heard of. It's about time we start scouting for them. But I think it's about time that we have women come out. I was very happy the last time I saw a video on Facebook with Dabo's wife at a political rally. Dabo was unable to make it, and she took a quick second to address them. That was the first time I saw her in public, and I was proud. I'm like, they should be doing this all the time. Mr. Krubally.
Yes.
These political parties know which village and which town is their stronghold. Even if it means you are also going to inaugurate tap water in a female garden, and a politician's wife would have to go inaugurate it, do it. There are so many strategies we could implement to make the opposition stronger. Because the idea there is, if you're in the opposition, You do not love the country. It has always been the idea forever. We need to change that. And a good female candidate can change that. A good female candidate can connect to a lot of other women out there if the message is sent the right way. And those women can filter it down to their homes. We have to attack the main place, the grassroots, the home. The dynamics in that home changes everything. If we can get the women to listen, believe me, the fighters will listen and the children will listen.
Thank you so much, Sam. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the conversation. Momodou Krubally here, speaking with Mr. Sam Phatey. Sam, we can keep this conversation going forever and ever because you opened up a very, very, very good point here onto how the opposition can really be effectively campaigning in some of those little villages and towns. These are all ideas that obviously come out when we speak to each other a lot more. And this is the essence of this conversation, is to come up with ideas, help our leaders, the opposition, to understand that some of the things that they can do to help bring about the end to this dictatorship. Sam, thank you so much. We understand where you came from, how you really became this active person that show belief in activism, and you've done an excellent job in getting your voice heard out there. You just spoke to the opposition leaders very eloquently. In closing, Sam, you're at the Gambia College right now, the Gambia University. Graduating ceremony. We're in a dictatorship, and for a minute, there's nobody around, and you're speaking to the graduate class to tell them what their responsibilities as youths when they go out there, what they need to do. Talk to them for a minute at the graduation ceremony. Keynote speaker, Sam Phatey.
That's a tough one. But, if I have to really address them, I will remind them of the fact that patriotism is not about supporting a government. And being successful is not about wasting taxpayers' money. That the shared burden that we have as a people, as a country, is far more important than our individual goals. That when you serve, whether you own a private farm or you work in the public sector, you are serving your community, you are serving your people, and that is how you become successful. If the people do not come to you, if you own a company or if you own a store to buy your goods and services and your products, then your company would fail. You will go into bankruptcy. If you're in the public sector and the people do not pay taxes, again, that means your salaries won't get paid. So at the end of the day, it goes back to that ordinary people and why it is so important to respect them, why it is so important to care for them, why it is so important that you are not only part of those who are at the top and everybody else at the bottom so they can come to you for help. That should not be the aim. Our aim was to make sure that there is rule of law, that there is social justice, that what belongs to everybody is shared equally, that we can give back to our communities, that we can respect one another, that we understand that we are all Gambian, that sometimes we can all disagree, that we don't have to agree on the same thing all the time. That's normal to disagree. But when I disagree with you, doesn't mean I hate you. Doesn't mean I'm jealous of you. Doesn't mean I envy you. That when we say let's put our country first, it doesn't mean whoever is on the other side is an enemy. That we can make our country great. We can make our country better no matter how small we are. That at the end of the day, I am not going to use my ideas to strengthen a dictatorship. I am not going to use my knowledge and my ideas and my creativity to make more Gambian people suffer. That everything that I learned, that everything that I know, that the brain that God gave me, I will turn it into some knowledge, some wisdom that will make my country better by making the lives of people better. That each and every Gambian today that graduate, that has a business, that have an education, or that have opportunities, open those doors of opportunities for other Gambian people. Become an insurance policy for every other Gambian. Don't be a liability to the society. That is what citizenship is about. That is what nationhood is about. And that is the kind of brotherliness, that is the kind of unity, that is the kind of love that is preached in our national anthem. That is the kind of belief, that is the kind of idea that would make our nation a better place that we can all be proud of. Where you and I, when we go to work, we would be able to have enough to feed our families and do not go out there to beg our neighbor for anything. That we can live in dignity and self-respect. That our kids can have high self-esteem in the community. That we can all fairly have equal opportunities in education, in healthcare. Not to have a particular group of people being able to have good education because they live in a certain part of town and are able to afford certain things. That I can go to public school and still receive the same education as a child going to private school. And that we can all hold our governments accountable. But not to say that, well, if I do this, I'm going to lose my job. And I went to university for 4 years. Well, there are so many others that are going to come after us. How about if we don't have the right policies to make sure that we can attract foreign investors and attract proper jobs? How about if we don't have the right policies to make sure that, because we're just thinking of ourselves, so we decided to create policies that favor us, and we don't have the right policies that would encourage the cottage and small businesses in our country so they can grow, so that we can have sound financial and fiscal policies that will make borrowing very easy for small business owners and our entrepreneur youths. These youths are so enterprising, but they don't have access to loans because our government is borrowing from all the banks. How about we change that? So when they use their enterprising ideas, their companies can go from small businesses to large businesses that we can see replicated not just across the country, but across our borders, that would hire not just Gambians, but even non-Gambians alike. That will not only be beneficial to the Gambian economy, that will be beneficial to Africa. If a small company like Facebook can start in the Silicon Valley and have offices in China and in India and are employing people from all over the world and Google, and some of these companies, of course, you have Gambians working there with ideas, and their ideas are working for these companies. They are giving them ideas. Who said our government, with the right policies, with the right people, cannot tap these young people to come back, or even those young people who are graduates from the university today, to take those ideas and build great softwares? Whether it's security software, it could be a health software, and be innovative. This could be our country's competitive advantage. Our competitive advantage is not going to be in tourism. Our competitive advantage is not going to be in any other thing. The innovation of our competitive advantage is the love that we are going to share for our country, that we can look back and make sure our brothers do not suffer, that we will not be in a barrel full of crabs. That's not what we are going to be. We are not going to be crabs. We are going to be ants. Our country is little, like an ant. It's not big like a crab. But you know what ants are good at? They come together, right? And they can take down a big worm. And they will create a teamwork and drag it back to wherever they need to take it, and they're going to feed off of it. That's how our nation needs to be. That instead of being crabs and dragging each other down as we are right now, as small as we are going to team together and make sure our brothers and our sisters do not fall behind. If they're falling, we're going to grab them and bring them back up with us.
Thank you so much, Sam Phatey. Thank you so much. My friend, there is hope. You motivate me. Listening to you makes me believe that we can do this, and it motivates me. As someone who is older than you, hearing a young man like you talk so much sense. And this is what we need to do, to talk to each other. For the young that are growing up, to understand that they can be like Sam Phatey and more than Sam Phatey, just like you want to make sure that when you talk about the history of the Gambia, that you tell them that there was Ousainou Darboe, that there was Halifa, that there was my Phatey, and they left everything. They looked at country and they got us out of a dictatorship. I hope this will be a history that we're archiving today, that the future will listen to and they will understand that at one point, it took young men and women of this country to rise up, speak against the dictatorship, and speak against the dictatorship and the freedom that they're enjoying right now. Thank you so much, my friend, and thanks for coming to the conversation.
And thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.